The life support pod drifted silently through the darkness of deep space. Inside, Zaravek sat with her back straight against the cold metal wall, her four-fingered hands resting on her knees. The blue-gray skin around her large eyes had darkened with exhaustion, but she refused to close them. Every moment awake was a moment she was still alive. 6 days of oxygen remained. 6 days until the slow, inevitable end. Zara reached for the small recording device built into the pod's control panel. "This is Lieutenant Zaravek, former security officer of the Concordium Federation vessel Righteous Duty, day 24 of exile." Her voice remained steady despite everything. Systems functioning at minimal capacity. No sign of passing vessels. She paused, looking out through the small viewport at the endless stars. They seemed colder now than when she had observed them from the command deck of her ship. Back then they represented possibility and discovery. Now they were just distant witnesses to her punishment. "I maintain that the evidence I gathered against Admiral Quo Ren was authentic. The weapons being developed violated not only our treaties with the Galactic Council, but the core principles of the Concordium itself." She took a slow breath. "I do not regret my actions, even knowing the outcome." The pod was barely 2 meters long and 1 meter wide. It held nothing but her, a small water recycler, and enough nutrient paste to last 30 days. No propulsion system. No distress beacon. Just life support designed to fail gradually after the allotted time. The Concordium called it mercy. Zara called it cowardice. They couldn't face executing her outright for exposing the truth, so they left her fate to the empty void. Zara turned off the recorder and closed her eyes for just a moment. She thought of her clutch mates, the 5 others hatched alongside her 30 years ago. They hadn't been involved in her investigation, but their association with her was enough for the Admiral to reassign them to dangerous outposts on the edge of Concordium space. She hoped they were safe. The pod's systems hummed quietly. Occasionally, a small alert would sound as another function reduced its power to conserve energy. First to go had been the heating system. Zara now wore her uniform jacket at all times, though it did little against the deepening chill. Next would be the lights, leaving her in darkness for her final days. She straightened her posture again. A Concordium officer, even a disgraced one, maintained discipline until the end. That was what she had been taught. That was what she would do. A small chime from the pod's basic sensor array caught her attention. It was probably just another piece of space debris passing nearby. She had seen 17 such alerts over the past weeks. Still, it gave her something to do. Zara pressed the display button. The readout was simple, just basic information about nearby objects large enough to detect. The pod lacked any detailed scanning capability. The object was metallic, much larger than asteroid debris, and it was changing course. Changing course? Zara pressed her face to the small viewport, straining to see in the direction indicated by the sensor. Nothing but stars at first. Then she saw it. A distant light moving in an arc that natural objects didn't follow. A ship. Too far to identify, but definitely a ship. For the first time in 24 days, Zara felt her heart's race with something other than dread. Hope was dangerous. Hope made the inevitable harder to accept. But she couldn't help it. She quickly moved to the pod's simple control panel. The Concordium had disabled the distress beacon and communications array, but they hadn't completely removed them. That would have been seen as deliberately causing death rather than merely allowing it, a distinction that mattered to her people's twisted sense of justice. Zara had been working on the systems every day, trying to restore some function. As a security officer, she knew how the lockouts worked. She hadn't made much progress, but if there was ever a time to try again, it was now. Her fingers moved across the panel, inputting the emergency override sequences she had been working out. Each one failed, as they had before. But she had saved one possibility for last, an old maintenance code that might bypass the main lockout. The panel flashed red with rejection, then yellow, then, amazingly green, a single communication function activated, the pod's external light. It wasn't much, but it was something. Zara quickly input the universal distress pattern. 3 short flashes, 3 long flashes, 3 short flashes. An ancient signal from Earth's oceans that had somehow become standard across the galaxy. She repeated the pattern again and again, watching the distant ship. It was moving in a search pattern now, definitely looking for something. But not necessarily her. And even if they detected her, they might ignore a lone survival pod. Many ships would. Few captains wanted the complication of a rescue, especially in this uncharted region where her pod had been left. The ship grew larger in her viewport as it changed course again. It was coming closer. Zara could start to make out its shape, long and angular with visible weapon ports. A warship, not a merchant vessel. Her heart sank. Warships rarely stopped for unknown objects. They typically assumed threats, not survivors. Still, she kept flashing the light. It was all she had. As the ship drew nearer, Zara could finally see markings on its hull. Not concordium symbols, which would have meant her death. These were unfamiliar at first. Then she recognized them with a jolt of surprise. Human, she had never met a human, but she knew of them. The concordium portrayed them as dangerous expansionists, barely controlled barbarians who had somehow acquired space travel before developing proper civilization. Their ships were to be avoided. Their territories were restricted to concordium citizens. Zara didn't know if human ships would honor the ancient rescue traditions. She didn't know if they would help an alien or simply destroy an unknown object in their path. But she kept the light flashing. Even a quick death by human weapons would be preferable to the slow one awaiting her as her oxygen failed. The human warship slowed as it approached, massive compared to her tiny pod. Lights swept over her, powerful scanning beams that could see through the pod's thin walls. They would detect a single life form. Would they care? Zara waited, her breath shallow, conserving oxygen by instinct even as her future hung in balance. The human ship moved closer still, until it filled her viewport entirely. She could see the name on its hull now, written in the human script she had learned as part of her security training. USS Dauntless. A new light appeared on her control panel. Someone was attempting to establish communication. The pod couldn't receive or transmit voice, but the simple text system might still work. Words in the human language called English appeared on her small screen. Survivor identified. Prepare for retrieval. Zara stared at the words, hardly daring to believe them. Then her pod shuddered as an invisible force, a tractor beam, gently caught it. For the first time in 24 days, Lieutenant Zara Vex of the Concordium Federation allowed herself to feel something dangerous. Hope. Commander Frank Kelly stood on the bridge of the USS Dauntless, hands clasped behind his back as he watched the small alien pod being drawn into the ship's hangar bay. The massive warship, nearly 400 meters long, made the life pod look like little more than a floating coffin. "Retrieval complete, Captain," reported Lieutenant Olivia Martinez from her station. Her fingers moved quickly across the sensor controls. Life signs are stable but unusual, definitely not human. "Captain," Samantha Nichols nodded, her short blonde hair catching the light as she turned to the ship's doctor. "Dr. White, your assessment?" Dr. Alan White studied the medical readouts on his tablet. "The life form appears oxygen-breathing but with different requirements than humans. Body temperature is lower than ours. 2 distinct cardiac signatures, possibly multiple hearts. Without more data, I can't say much else." "Is it safe to open the pod?" asked the captain. Dr. White nodded. "Our atmosphere should be breathable for the being inside, at least for a short time. I recommend we have environmental suits ready just in case, both for our safety and for the survivors." Captain Nichols turned to her security chief. "Chief, Peters, assemble a retrieval team. Standard first contact protocols." "Yes, ma'am." Chief Greg Peters didn't look happy about the order. "With respect, Captain, we don't know anything about this alien or why it was drifting out here alone." "Noted, Chief. That's why you'll be taking all necessary precautions." The captain's voice was firm. But we will not leave a sentient being to die in space when we can help. That's not how this ship operates. Commander Kelly watched Peters leave the bridge, then stepped closer to the captain. I share some of the chief's concerns, Sam, he said quietly. We're on the edge of mapped space here. This could be complicated. Most rescues are, Frank. Captain Nichols smiled slightly. But some traditions go beyond borders and species. If humans had never been willing to take chances on unknown aliens, we'd still be stuck in our own solar system. Kelly nodded. He had served with Samantha Nichols for 7 years and knew when her mind was made up. Besides, he couldn't argue with her point. Humanity's first encounters with alien species had been marked by both sides taking leaps of faith. I'll go down to the hangar bay to oversee the operation, he said. The captain nodded. Keep me updated. I want to know who our guest is and how they ended up adrift out here. In the hangar bay, a medical team in lightweight environmental suits waited as the small pod was secured to the deck. Dr. White ran his scanner over the hull. The pod's atmosphere is leaking slowly, he reported. Life support systems are failing. If we hadn't found it, he didn't need to finish the thought. Commander Kelly nodded to the security team standing ready with stun batons at their sides. Open it. 2 engineers stepped forward and began working on the pod's hatch. It took several minutes to figure out the alien mechanism, but finally, there was a hiss of escaping air as the seal broke. The hatch lifted slowly. Inside, a slender blue-gray alien sat with its back perfectly straight despite obvious exhaustion. Large, dark eyes blinked at the sudden light. Its face had no nose, just breathing slits on either side, and a small mouth. 4-fingered hands gripped the sides of its seat as if preparing for an attack. Hello? Dr. White said, stepping forward with his hands open to show he held no weapons. We're here to help you, do you understand? The alien's eyes darted from face to face before settling on the doctor. It spoke words no one understood, its voice musical, but clearly strained. Ensign Cooper, Commander Kelly called to a young woman, standing nearby. Bring the universal translator. Lisa Cooper hurried forward with a small device. She held it toward the alien as it spoke again. Working on it, sir, she said to Kelly. The computer needs more samples to build a translation. Matrix. Dr. White knelt beside the pod, holding up his medical scanner. May I? He asked, gesturing to indicate he wanted to check the alien's health. The alien hesitated, then gave a small nod that looked surprisingly human. Dr. White ran the scanner over its form, frowning at the results. Dehydration, low blood sugar, or whatever their equivalent is, and mild hypothermia by their standards, he reported. We need to get them to sickbay. As 2 medical assistants brought forward a gurney, the alien spoke again, longer this time. The translator beeped as it processed the words. I am Lieutenant Zaravex, came the halting translation. Concordium, Federation. You are humans. Yes, Commander Kelly replied. I am Commander Frank Kelly of the United Earth Navy vessel Dauntless. We found your pod adrift and brought you aboard for medical assistance. The alien, Zaravex, seemed to process this information. The translator continued improving as she spoke more. The Concordium does not allow contact with humans. Your species is... The translation paused as it searched for the right word. Dangerous. Kelly couldn't help but smile slightly. Right now, the only danger is to your health if we don't get you treated. Will you allow our doctor to help you? Zara seemed to consider this, looking at the medical team and their equipment. Finally, she nodded. I have little choice. As the medical team helped her from the pod onto the gurney, Kelly noticed how weakened she was. Her limbs trembled with the effort of movement. Dr. White immediately attached a monitoring device to her arm. Commander, Zara said as they prepared to move her. Why did you stop? No ships stop in this region. Kelly looked at her directly. We picked up your life signs and changed course to investigate. When we realized you were alone in a failing pod, the decision to rescue you was automatic. Zara's large eyes studied him. The Concordium teaches that humans are violent expansionists who only value their own kind. Well, Kelly said with a small smile, someone gave you bad information. As they wheeled Zara toward the elevator, Chief Peters approached Commander Kelly. Sir, we've examined the pod. No weapons, but the communication systems have been deliberately disabled. Someone wanted to make sure she couldn't call for help. Kelly frowned. Why would anyone do that? Unknown, sir. But there's more. The life support was programmed to fail after 30 days. This wasn't an accident, it was an execution. Kelly looked at the alien being taken to sickbay. Whatever she had done to deserve such a punishment, they would need to find out. If the Concordium came looking for her, the Dauntless might find itself in a difficult position. Have Ensign Cooper keep working on the translation, he ordered. I want to know exactly who our guest is and why someone wanted her dead. In sickbay, Zara Vex watched the human medical staff prepare equipment with a mixture of fear and fascination. They moved with purpose, but without the rigid formality of Concordium medical personnel. The doctor spoke softly to her, though she understood only parts of what he said. These humans had saved her when her own people had abandoned her to die. But the Concordium would not let this interference go unchallenged. Once they discovered she had survived, they would come for her. And then these humans would learn why the Concordium considered them dangerous, because the humans were the only species who might stand against them. Zaravex sat on the edge of the examination bed in the human ship's medical bay. 3 days had passed since her rescue. Her strength was slowly returning thanks to the care of Dr. White and his team. They had analyzed her biology well enough to create nutrients that her body could use, and the universal translator now worked smoothly enough for real conversation. Dr. White checked the readings on the monitor beside her bed. Your vital signs are improving nicely. How do you feel today? Better, Zara replied. The cold feeling is gone. She flexed her 4-fingered hands, studying the medical bay around her. It was different from Concordium medical facilities, less sterile-looking with personal touches like small plants and pictures on the walls. The humans seemed to value comfort alongside function. Good. The captain would like to speak with you, if you're up to it. Zara nodded. She had been expecting this. The humans had saved her life, but they would want answers about why she had been abandoned. She straightened her posture, a lifetime of military discipline impossible to forget. A few minutes later, Captain Nichols entered the medical bay, accompanied by Commander Kelly. Zara had learned to recognize human expressions better over the past days. The captain's face looked serious but not hostile. Lieutenant Zaravex, the captain greeted her. I'm glad to see you recovering well. Thank you, Captain, and thank you for saving my life. Captain Nichols pulled up a chair and sat across from her. I think it's time we discussed how you ended up in that pod. Zara took a deep breath. I was sentenced to space exile by Admiral Quo Ren of the Concordium Federation. It is a death sentence that allows the condemned to live for 30 days before life support fails. What was your crime? Commander Kelly asked. I discovered evidence that Admiral Quo Ren and other high officials were developing biological weapons, in violation of treaties with the Galactic Council. Zara's voice was steady despite the painful memories. When I presented my findings through proper channels, I was accused of fabricating evidence and betraying the Concordium. Captain Nichols frowned. Biological weapons? That would violate at least 3 interstellar treaties. Yes, the weapons were designed to target specific species. Some were meant for humans. Zara watched their reactions carefully. The Concordium leadership sees humanity as a threat to their control of this sector of space. Commander Kelly and Captain Nichols exchanged glances. We've had limited contact with the Concordium, Captain Nichols said. They've always kept their distance, but we weren't aware they considered us an active threat. Most Concordium citizens know little about humans, Zara explained. Our leaders tell us you are aggressive expansionists who cannot be trusted. Meeting you has shown me this is not true. Dr. White, who had been listening nearby, joined the conversation. Can you explain more about these biological weapons? As a medical professional, I find this deeply concerning. Zara nodded. They were designed to attack respiratory systems. For humans, they would cause the lungs to fill with fluid within hours of exposure. She looked down at her hands. I had the evidence, research files, test results, facility locations. But it was taken when I was arrested. Captain Nichols leaned forward. If what you're saying is true, this information needs to reach Earth Command and the Galactic Council immediately. There's a problem with that, Commander Kelly said. Without evidence, it's your word against theirs. And rescuing a condemned prisoner, even unknowingly, could be seen as interference in Concordium affairs. A silence fell over the room as they considered the implications. Zara broke it first. My pod's data core might still contain fragments of the evidence. Before my arrest, I encrypted backup files in the system logs. The Concordium officials who prepared the pod would not have looked there. Commander Kelly's expression changed. Our chief engineer might be able to extract that data. I'll have him examine the pod immediately. In the meantime, Captain Nichols said, you are under the protection of this ship and Earth Navy. She was interrupted by an urgent communication. Captain to the bridge. Unknown vessels approaching. Captain Nichols stood quickly. We'll continue this discussion later. Doctor, please ensure our guest has everything she needs. As the captain and commander left for the bridge, Zara felt a cold dread building inside her. She knew who the unknown vessels belonged to even before the doctor's communication panel lit up with an alert message. 3 Concordium warships on intercept course, announced a voice. They had found her. On the bridge of the USS Dauntless, the crew watched the approaching vessels on the main view screen. 3 sleek, dark ships moved in perfect formation, their design more organic than human vessels, with curved hulls that resembled predatory sea creatures from Earth. They're hailing us, Captain, reported Ensign Cooper from communications. On screen, Captain Nichols ordered, standing tall as the image of a Concordium officer appeared. His blue-gray skin was darker than Zara's, and decorative markings on his face indicated high rank. Human vessel, the alien said without greeting. I am Fleet Commander Tyrell of the Concordium Federation. You have illegally retrieved a condemned criminal from lawful punishment. Return the prisoner Zaravex immediately. Captain Nichols kept her expression neutral. This is Captain Samantha Nichols of the Earth Navy vessel Dauntless. We found a life pod with a survivor in distress and rendered humanitarian aid, as is our custom and our duty under interstellar law. The Concordium. Commander's face showed no emotion. The prisoner was sentenced according to our laws. Your interference is not welcome. You will return her to us now, or we will consider this an act of aggression. Commander Kelly stepped closer to the captain and spoke quietly. Their ships outgun us 3-1, Captain. I'm aware, Commander, she replied softly before addressing the Concordium officer again. Fleet Commander, your former officer is receiving medical treatment. Under Earth Navy regulations, I cannot release a patient until they are medically cleared. I suggest we discuss this matter through proper diplomatic channels. There is nothing to discuss. You will comply within 1 Earth hour, or we will take action. The screen went dark as the Concordium commander ended the transmission. Options? Captain Nichols asked, looking around at her senior officers. We can't outrun them, said the navigation officer, and fighting would be suicide. Ma'am, called Chief Engineer Paul Miller from the back of the bridge. I've been examining the alien pod's systems. There are encrypted files hidden in the maintenance logs, just as she said. With a few more hours, I might be able to recover them. Captain Nichols nodded. Then we need to buy time. She turned to Commander Kelly. Have Chief Peters escort Lieutenant Zaravex to the bridge. If the Concordium want her back so badly, there must be more to her story than just an officer who spoke out of turn. As the crew prepared for possible confrontation, Captain Nichols studied the 3 alien vessels on the tactical display. The Dauntless was a powerful warship by human standards, but they were outnumbered and in an isolated region of space. No reinforcements would arrive in time if things went wrong. She had a duty to protect her crew, but she also had a duty to uncover the truth. If the Concordium really was developing biological weapons to use against Earth, handing Zara back could condemn millions of humans to death. 1 hour. They had 1 hour to find a way out of this standoff, or to find the evidence that might change everything. Zaravek stood on the bridge of the USS Dauntless, her back straight despite her fear. The 3 Concordium warships loomed on the main view screen, dark and threatening. 40 minutes remained of the ultimatum. "Are you sure about this?" Captain Nichols asked her quietly. Zara nodded. "Yes. Let me speak to them." The captain gave a signal to Ensign Cooper, who opened the communication channel. Fleet Commander Tyrell's face appeared on screen, his expression hardening when he saw Zara. "Traitor," he said simply. Zara met his gaze without flinching. "The real traitors are those who violate our most sacred laws, Commander. The humans found evidence in my pod. They know about the biological weapons program." Commander Tyrell's eyes narrowed slightly, the only sign that her words had affected him. "You lie. There is no evidence." "We have recovered partial files," Captain Nichols said, stepping forward. "Enough to take to the Galactic Council for investigation." This was not entirely true. Chief Engineer Miller was still working to decrypt the files, but the captain's bluff was delivered with perfect confidence. "If you fire on this vessel," she continued, "the files will automatically transmit to Earth Command and the Council. Is that what Admiral Quoren wants? An investigation that would expose everything?" Silence stretched across the bridge as Commander Tyrell considered his options. Finally, he spoke. "I will consult with my superiors. You have 2 additional hours. Then we will take action." The screen went black. "That bought us some time," Commander Kelly said. "But not much." Captain Nichols turned to Chief Miller. "How close are you to recovering those files?" The engineer wiped sweat from his forehead. "I've managed to decrypt some of the data, Captain. The good news is Lieutenant Zaravek was telling the truth. There are research files on biological agents designed to target human respiratory systems." "And the bad news?" Commander Kelly asked. "The files are fragmented. We have evidence of the weapons program, but not enough to prove who authorized it. There's nothing directly linking Admiral Quoren to the project." Zara stepped forward. "The complete files were on my secure terminal on the Concordium command station. Without those, it will be difficult to prove the Admiral's involvement." Captain Nichols paced the bridge, thinking. "We're out of Earth-Navy communication range. Even if we break through the Concordium blockade, it would take days to reach a point where we could send a secure transmission with the evidence we have." Lieutenant Martinez spoke up from her sensor station. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the Concordium vessels. They appear to be charging weapons." "They're not waiting for the deadline," Commander Kelly said grimly. "Captain," Nichols made a quick decision. "Battle stations raise shields, prepare for evasive maneuvers." As the crew rushed to comply, Zara felt a wave of guilt. These humans were now in danger because of her. "Captain, perhaps you should return me to them. I never intended to bring this conflict to your ship." "That's not how we do things, Lieutenant," Captain Nichols replied firmly. "We don't abandon people to unjust punishment. Besides, this isn't just about you anymore. If the Concordium is developing weapons to use against Earth, we need to get that information to our leaders." Suddenly, Chief Engineer Miller called out from his workstation. "Captain, I found something else in the pod's data. It's a set of command codes for Concordium vessels." Zara moved quickly to his side. "Those are emergency override codes. As a security officer, I had access to them in case of computer system failures or hostile takeovers." "Would they still work?" Captain Nichols asked. "Possibly. They change the codes every 30 days. If these are recent enough." Zara studied the screen. "Yes, these should still be valid for another 6 days." "Could we use them to disable the Concordium ships?" Commander Kelly asked. Zara shook her head. "Not directly, but we could interfere with their weapons targeting systems or engines, creating a distraction." Captain Nichols looked at the tactical display. The Dauntless was fast but couldn't outrun 3 warships for long. They needed an advantage. "Chief Miller, can you transmit those codes on a narrow beam to specific systems on their ships?" "Yes, Captain. With Lieutenant Zarovex's help, I can target their main weapons control. Do it, the captain ordered. Target the lead vessel first. As Zara and Miller worked quickly to prepare the transmission, Lieutenant Martinez reported, Concordium vessels are moving to surround us, Captain. They're within weapons range. Evasive pattern Delta, Captain Nichols commanded. Keep our shields at maximum forward. The Dauntless shuddered as it executed a sharp turn, throwing the crew against their restraints. On the screen, the 3 Concordium ships adjusted their positions, boxing in the human vessel. Ready to transmit the override. Codes, Chief Miller announced. Wait for my signal, the captain said. We'll need perfect timing. Commander Kelly leaned close to Captain Nichols. Even if this works, it's only temporary. We'll still need to get past them and back to Earth space. One problem at a time, Frank, she replied. Then, addressing the entire bridge. Once the lead ship's weapons are disrupted, we'll make a run between the other 2. Navigation. Plot a course that takes advantage of the gas cloud at coordinates 227 Mark 43. The nebula particles should interfere with their sensors. Zara watched the humans work with smooth efficiency. Despite the danger, they remained focused and calm. It was different from the rigid control of Concordium officers, who followed protocols without question. These humans adapted, improvised, and worked together with a flexibility her people rarely showed. The lead Concordium ship is charging weapons, Lieutenant Martinez reported. They're targeting our engines. Transmit the override codes now, ordered Captain Nichols. Chief Miller pressed the command, sending Zara's security codes directly to the lead Concordium ship's weapon systems. For a tense moment, nothing happened. Then Lieutenant Martinez called out, Their weapons are powering down. It worked. Full impulse, Captain Nichols commanded. Take us between the other 2 ships. Evasive pattern Omega. The Dauntless surged forward, its engines straining as it accelerated toward the gap between the 2 remaining Concordium vessels. They turned to fire, but the human ship was moving too quickly, its course unpredictable. Energy beams from the Concordium ships lanced out, grazing the Dauntless's shields. The bridge shook violently. Shields holding at 60%, reported the tactical officer. Almost through, the navigation officer called. The ship shuddered again as another energy beam struck its port side. Warning lights flashed across multiple consoles. Port shield failing, warned the tactical officer. Zara gripped the edge of a console as the ship rocked from the impact. She had never experienced combat from the bridge of a human vessel before. The Concordium way was methodical, detached. The humans fought with passion and determination that seemed to flow from the captain to every member of the crew. Then they were through the gap, the Dauntless racing toward the gas cloud with the Concordium ships in pursuit. We made it, Commander, Kelly said, a hint of surprise in his voice. Don't celebrate yet, Captain Nichols replied, her eyes still on the tactical display. We've still got a long way to go before we reach Earth space, and they'll be right behind us. But Zara noticed something the humans hadn't yet, a slight hesitation in the Concordium pursuit. The ships were falling back slightly, as if suddenly uncertain. Captain, she said, I think our escape and the override codes have confused them. This isn't in their standard response protocols. They're requesting new orders from their superiors. Captain Nichols smiled for the first time since the confrontation began. Then let's make the most of their confusion. Full speed to the edge of the nebula. We'll plot our jump to Earth space from there. As the Dauntless sped away, Zara looked at these strange humans who had risked everything for her, an alien they barely knew. Their actions defied everything the Concordium had taught her about humanity. Perhaps that was why the Concordium leaders feared them so much. The last 3 weeks had transformed the capital city of Azura Prime. What once was a place of elegant spires and quiet order now buzzed with frantic activity. Defense stations covered the landscape, each modified with Lily's dissonance technology. John had helped engineer a network that could quickly change frequency patterns if the void swarm began to adapt. In a laboratory deep beneath the city, John and Lily stood before a holographic map showing the approaching enemy fleet. 1 day left, John said quietly. The main swarm will reach our outer defenses tomorrow morning. Lily nodded, dark circles under her eyes from weeks of minimal sleep. The dissonance network is ready. We've prepared 20 different frequency patterns that can be deployed in sequence or simultaneously. High Commander Zeeler entered the room, followed by Elder Micah, Chief Science Officer Nix, and General Krill. The four Azurians had become their closest allies in the preparation efforts. Final reports from all defense stations are positive, Zeeler announced. The people are ready. General Krill's expression remained doubtful. The swarm has slowed its approach in the last 2 days. They are being cautious after losing the scout ship. Or they're planning something, John suggested. Elder Micah placed a small crystal on the table, one of the fragments recovered from the destroyed scout. Our analysis shows changes in the molecular structure compared to previous samples. They are indeed adapting. Lily picked up the fragment, examining it closely. The lattice arrangement is more complex. They're trying to defend against our dissonance patterns. Will our defenses still work? Zeeler asked directly. John and Lily exchanged glances. We think so, John answered carefully. But we need a backup plan. Nix's tendrils curled with curiosity. What do you propose? John activated a different hologram, showing a small ship with unusual modifications. We've designed a vessel that can approach the center of the swarm. If our planetary defenses don't stop them, this ship could deliver a concentrated dissonance burst directly to their core. A suicide mission, General Krill stated flatly. Not necessarily, Lily countered. The ship would be automated, guided remotely. But someone would need to program the final adjustments based on how the swarm responds, John added. And our communications might be blocked by crystal interference. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. You intend to pilot this vessel yourselves, Zeeler realized. Just me, John said firmly. Lily needs to stay here to coordinate the defense network. No, Lily protested. The dissonance patterns are my specialty. I should go. Or perhaps both of you, Elder Micah suggested. Together, your human minds have accomplished what generations of Azurians could not. Together, you may succeed where one alone would fail. Before they could debate further, an alarm sounded. The holographic display flickered, showing new movement from the void swarm. They've increased speed suddenly, a technician reported over the communication system. New estimated arrival, 6 hours. They're coming now? Lily gasped. We're not ready for a night attack. General Krill was already issuing orders to his officers. All defense stations to full alert. Evacuate civilians to the underground shelters. The backup ship, John asked urgently. Is it ready? Nix nodded. The modifications were completed yesterday. It awaits in Launch Bay 3. Then we prepare for both scenarios, Zeeler decided. The planetary defenses are our first option. The ship is our last resort. As the Azurians rushed to their positions, John pulled Lily aside. I meant what I said. You should stay here. Lily shook her head firmly. We're in this together, John. From the moment they pulled us across the stars, our fates have been linked. 6 hours later, they stood on the command center's observation deck, watching the night sky. The 3 moons cast an eerie light on the city below, now quiet as the population waited in underground shelters. First wave approaching upper atmosphere, came the report. Multiple crystal formations, larger than any we've encountered before. On the display screens they could see the massive crystal ships descending, hundreds of them, forming a pattern like a giant snowflake. Activate primary defense grid, Zeeler ordered. Lily gave a final command to her control panel. Dissonance pattern alpha deploying now. The invisible sound waves radiated upward from stations across the planet. The effect on the void swarm was immediate. The outer ships began to fracture, pieces breaking away as they had with the scout. It's working, an Azurian officer called out. But their celebration was premature. The inner ships of the formation began to emit a strange pulsing light. The fractured ships started to repair themselves, crystal growing back faster than it was being destroyed. They're adapting, John said grimly. Switch to pattern beta. Lily made the adjustment. Again, there was initial success as different ships began to crack. But again, the swarm adapted. Pattern Gamma, Delta, Epsilon, Lily called out, cycling through their prepared frequencies. Each worked briefly before the swarm countered it. They're learning too quickly, Nix observed. The patterns aren't holding long enough. John looked at the display showing their backup ship. It's time for Plan B, Sealer nodded solemnly. The launch bay is ready. As John and Lily prepared to leave, Elder Micah approached them. There is something I must share before you go. She handed them another memory crystal, smaller than the first. This contains the oldest memory we have of the precursors. They left a message about the Void Swarm, something we never fully understood. John took the crystal. As before, images flooded his mind when he touched it, but this time they were clearer, more specific. He saw the Void Swarm's origin, not a natural phenomenon, but a creation, an ancient terraforming system designed to transform worlds. They weren't meant to destroy, he whispered. They were meant to build. Lily, who had touched the crystal with him, nodded in understanding. Not weapons, but tools that lost their purpose. Go now, Micah urged them. Perhaps this knowledge will help where our weapons cannot. The small ship waited in the launch bay, its systems humming with power. As they boarded, John glanced back at the Azurians who had gathered to see them off. If we don't make it back, he began. You will, Zelar interrupted. You must. The ship rose from the launch bay and accelerated toward the swarm. Below them, the beautiful city of the Azurians glittered in the moonlight. Above, the crystal formation of the Void Swarm spread across the sky like a vast, shimmering web. Ready? John asked, taking the pilot's position. Lily nodded, activating the dissonance. Generators. Ready? Together they flew toward the heart of the swarm, carrying with them the hopes of two civilizations, the one that had summoned them, and the one they had left behind. The crystal ships seemed to sense their approach, turning toward the small vessel with its human pilots. But John and Lily were no longer afraid. They had seen the origin of their enemy and understood its purpose. They had seen its creation and knew its code. Not destruction, John said as they reached the center of the formation. Reconstruction. Lily smiled as she input the final commands. Not a dissonance pattern, but a harmony. A signal the ancient terraforming system would recognize as a command from its long-dead creators. Time to remind them what they were meant to be, she said. They activated the signal. The heart of the Void Swarm began to pulse with new light. Not the sickly purple of before, but a warm, golden glow that spread outward to every ship in the formation. On Azura Prime, the Azurians watched in wonder as the Void Swarm transformed before their eyes, from an instrument of destruction to what it was always meant to be, a creator of worlds, a builder of futures, a tool for salvation rather than extinction, and at its center, a small ship with two humans from Earth, proving once again that sometimes the greatest solutions come from the most unexpected places.